Please welcome the Education Director for FDIC International and the Editor-in-Chief of Fire Engineering, Bobby Halton.
Duty, honor, country. These three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be. Those words were spoken by then General of the Army Douglas MacArthur in May of 1962. It has been said that having a vision is an acute sense of the possible, a vision of what a firefighter ought to be, what a firefighter can be, and what a firefighter will be. As we visit here today, there exists a lively discussion, a spirited discussion, on tactical options for structural firefighting. Both options are being discussed by good firefighters, by people who care passionately about the fire service and our mission. One of those voices favors saying that based on data, that based on the science, the default tactic is clear. This side has developed an approach that is well-founded and has great results on the fire ground. The second set of voices favor saying that based on fireground experience and historical evidence, the default tactic is clear. This side has developed an approach that is well-founded and has great results on the fire ground. Some would have you believe, on both sides of this debate, that honest discourse is not happening in our current tactical discussions. They would have you believe that the other side is intransient, engaged in sophism. They would have you believe that the fire service has a schism. We don't. Nothing, in my opinion, could be further from the truth. Yes, there are lively and passionate discussions, and yes, some strongly disagree. But in my travels, I see everywhere dedicated firefighters on both sides who understand, appreciate, and respect both points of view. Both arguments have very valid points. Both arguments are very well-intentioned. And these differing views, they're wonderful. The discussions are wonderful. The debates are wonderful. We should celebrate and rejoice that so many care so deeply and are not intimidated or hesitant to engage and to question and inquire. As President Thomas Jefferson so wisely said, question with boldness even the existence of a God, because if there be one, he must more approve of the homage of reason than that of blindfolded fear. Our discussions are a sign that we are a healthy industry, an honest industry, an open industry. Discussions, arguments, respectful exchanges ensure that we do not go down any path blindly, good or bad. That we don't accept things at face value means that we are committed, competent, and confident of our abilities. But it occurred to me that perhaps we're missing the larger point in spending so much energy in this tactical argument. It occurred to me that perhaps the larger point has been obscured by our rhetoric, our passion, and our good intentions. It occurred to me that this tactical debate is focused properly on what a firefighter does, and that our risk management concerns are focused properly on what a firefighter does. But I think, as the good general pointed out in 1962, that more needs to be said about what a firefighter ought to be, what a firefighter can be, and most importantly, what a firefighter will be. Not for any lack of interest or any innate flaw. It's clear that very often we as firefighters lack a clear sense of ourselves as public servants, with responsibilities and opportunities that are unique to us. Most of us go day by day working very hard in developing the essential skills that are crucial to our mission. But many of us, if not most of us, miss that all-important step. That step of developing an awareness of how our growing sense of confidence and competence relates to the essence of what a firefighter can be. What we all need, all of us, not only our younger firefighters and our newer officers, is a template, a guide, a role model, a vision of what being a public servant, and in particular, a firefighter, means today. And most importantly, what we as firefighters may become in the future. I now represent the older end of those of us still active in the fire service. Our vision of the firefighter was shaped when we were raised by legendary firefighters like John O'Hagan and Leo Stapleton. We all wore the FDNY radio belts as young officers, and as young chiefs we stood outside with clipboards and cigars. We rode the tailboards with open coats, and we scoffed when it was suggested that bunker pants could ever replace our incredibly heavy, chafing, and blister-causing three-quarter boots. We carried around and quoted treasured dog-eared copies of Fireground Tactics by Emanuel Fried and Bill Clark's Principles and Practices. The example of these gentlemen's lives helped us to have our visions and helped us to have proud and honorable careers. Our vision of what it meant to be a good firefighter, buoyed by the examples of those legendary leaders and enhanced by advances in technology and science, lifted us and helped give our service meaning. And for many of us, those gentlemen's examples set us on quests for new knowledge, helped us grow, and made us more adept at creating new things, at finding new solutions, at adapting and adopting new technology. The example of those firefighters' lives gave us the inspiration we needed to lift for excellence and to lift our profession into a truly professional status. And by our lifestyle, enabled us to earn respect from others. In a word, they gave us style. A few of us were made better able to cope with great changes that were sweeping through the fire service throughout our careers. Changes that were led by men like Coleman, O'Neill, Brunacini, and Norman. During those turbulent times, we were challenged to make our visions work. We grappled with ICS, customer service, paramedicine, certification, and accreditation. We looked to the past. We examined our present, and we embraced a vision of our future selves. The legends' lives of honor and humility kept us on mission. They lifted us all, carried us, and made our profession the most admired in the world. It can be argued today that our methods now of bringing new firefighters and indoctrinating new officers into leadership is lacking, that the time we have is stressed and strained beyond the breaking point due to all the demands that we need to cover in today's incredibly dynamic fire service. But that would be missing the larger point. We have outstanding training programs in our community colleges, in our training academies, and online that do a wonderful job of explaining exactly what it is we do. But it is up to those of us gathered here today to ensure that we create and become that template, that vision, as it was done for us by leaders who understood duty, honor, and devotion to country, and who shared with us a vision of what a firefighter ought to be. The current systems that we have are more Spartan in nature, and by that I mean we're obsessed with what we do physically in the moment to solve problems. We need to blend a little bit of Athens and combine what we mean and represent to society in the greater sense along with what we do for what it means to be a firefighter. more than our technical skills, may be of far greater value now and in the days ahead, not only to us, but our communities. Now, more than ever before, it is critical for us to live up to the expectations established long ago of what it means to be a firefighter. And in doing so, we are blending education and training, character and competence with inspiration and aspiration. And in that blending, we create a vision of what a firefighter can be. But there's this handicap that my generation and the subsequent generations have been struggling with. We've been handicapped by a culture that puts a premium on solving problems in the moment rather than constructing a viable and livable philosophy of life. We can no longer accept this handicap. We have been raised in a task-oriented rather than character-oriented industry. We're accustomed to thinking in the present. We're accustomed to thinking in the present rather than considering the past or assessing the future. This thinking portrays an unreal world where all problems can both be presented and solved at the same time. This focus solely on the task level creates a stagnation of our intellectual curiosity and our personal development, and it begins an atrophy of our ability to remain excited about our incredible mission and our duty. It leaves us ill-prepared to create answers to the old questions, and so those old questions never get solved. It makes us less capable to adapt and change, and more inclined to pick a side rather than accept and explore an opportunity. But by building a vision of our future selves as humble and courageous servants, it's a powerful antidote to this stagnation and those unacceptable outcomes. By remaining curious about our history and those incredible stories of our principles and virtues and actions, we can learn how a true national servant, how a true firefighter should be. By studying the life of the truly honorable firefighter, we can learn how they thought and lived and discover that today's problems have been thought about before. By looking at the integrity of the honorable firefighter, by looking at the legacy of the humble firefighter, by looking at the courage of the dutiful firefighter, we can better understand the amazing relationship between the firefighter and the public that we serve. This combination of education and training, vision and self-awareness creates the firefighter of commitment, competence, confidence, and character. This firefighter quest for self-vision provides us that inner strength to believe unfalteringly that it is the mission, the men, and me, that it is team, teammates, and self, that it is country, community, and crew, that it is always about our duty to the mission, our loyalty to our fellow fighters, and lastly, our own self-concerns. There are those who will say that our modern world is far different than that of the men who lived in the days of Aristotle, Washington, MacArthur, Stapleton, Braidwood, O'Hagan, and Freed. That our technology has so far advanced and we have so evolved that there could be little use in studying how they thought, how they lived, or what they thought to be courage and virtue in action. But those firefighters who are truly worthy understand that a firefighter should understand a wide variety of things, many different styles, tactics, and techniques. And by doing so, we might better understand what we ought to be, what we can be, and better imagine and strive for what we will be. We've all been raised with the image of that noble firefighter, that charismatic creature who's accorded a hero status for his competence and daring. It's the quintessential romantic vision. And for many of us, my generation, that vision was the iconic leader Ray Downey, or the consummate innovator Alan Brunacini, or the brilliance of Ronnie Coleman. As we go back further, that nobility is enhanced by memories of Emanuel Freed, John O'Hagan, Bresnan, Croker, and Braidwood. In our search for self-vision, good firefighters move beyond the occupation of firefighters and seek to be exemplary human beings who just happen to be firefighters. If we look at history, and our philosophical roots, it's clear that these two voices, these two tactical opinions on our mission and safety are not irreconcilable. They're, in fact, two sides of the same coin. With careful selection of who you listen to, firefighters of character and integrity, you can clearly hear that our mission is to save lives and property, that our mission is at all times to ensure the safety and survivability of all of us, victim and rescuer alike. That message is clear from both McCormick and Kerber, from Buchanan and Kerber, Fields and Piontek and Healy. These leaders are not critics. They are in the arena. They are visionaries. They do not dwell in the moment. They consider the past, the present, and the future. But firefighters do not have to find our way alone in this question with the moral question of risk. Aristotle, in a beautiful explanation of his belief of the struggle within the human condition between vision, risk, and personal safety, blessed us with this incredible quote: "The more thou dost advance, the more thy feet pitfalls will meet. The path that leadeth on is lit by one fire, the light of daring, burning in the heart. The more one dares, the more he shall obtain. The more he fears, the more that light shall pale. And that alone can guide." We can gain a vision of that light of daring and what it looks like in action by examining those who had to gauge risk versus reward. Let's take just a moment and look at some of those who followed the path lit by light's fire of daring, a daring that comes from a deep sense of humility that only through service and sacrifice can one truly give back, can one truly be alive. Take, for example, a gentle Charleston, South Carolina firefighter who lives for his brothers and sisters and who gained his vision from 15 months in one of the darkest places in the world, where death and courage was always present, during the height of the Iraq War, serving in one of the hardest hit units in the Army. Serving along with him was a young man full of energy, full of love, full of questions. His name was Ross Mcginnis. He drove everyone crazy with his endless enthusiasm and his endless questions. One of the things that young Private Mcginnis was particularly obsessed with was the vulnerability of the Humvees and the Bradleys to grenade attacks. Often children would be hired by the insurgents to toss grenades into the Humvees and Bradleys to kill American soldiers. Mcginnis became obsessed with ways to better protect the Humvees and Bradleys by using a system of chicken wire and netting that he helped develop. Ross Mcginnis and all the other soldiers of 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry, Charlie Company were well aware of how a grenade inside the truck could be, how it could tear soldiers apart, killing and maiming indiscriminately. Ross and all the other soldiers of Charlie Company crafted and participated in intensely focused drills for exiting the Humvees as quickly as possible when a simulated grenade would be tossed inside. On December 4th, while patrolling the streets of Ahmadiyya, a 15-year-old boy tossed a live grenade into the truck and the Humvee where Ross Mcginnis was riding on the 50 cal. Ross saw it first. He yelled, "Grenade!" Sergeant Thomas shouted, "Where?" Mcginnis said, "It's in the truck." With what was described as a look of fearless determination, Ross Mcginnis looked around. He realized his fellow soldiers could not escape in time. He threw himself on that grenade, absorbing the blast and saving the life of 3 other soldiers. The 15-year-old kid who threw that grenade earned $50. Ross Mcginnis earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. And our own E.J. Mascaro, our gentle South Carolina firefighter, earned another vision of selflessness, that there are things more important than your own personal safety. He learned another vision in courage, that it is truly shipmates, and self. He learned another vision in humility, that love conquers all. A vision of what a servant of the nation ought to be. A vision of what a firefighter can be. A vision of what EJ would become. Today, the fire service is blessed because we have EJ. And EJ continues to show the courage and humility that he learned on those dark and dangerous streets in Iraq. He continues to show the love and integrity of character that he learned from his fellow soldiers who were willing to give all to protect one another, and some of them did give all. Some of us got our vision of what a firefighter ought to be as children, like FDNY firefighter Rob Weedman. Rob grew up chasing fire trucks while riding his bicycle doing a paper route on Long Island. As soon as he could, he joined the Explorers, and as quickly as he could, he took the test. He still describes the day he got his letter as the most exciting day of his life. Upon graduating the academy, he was one of the luckiest graduates. He landed a spot on ladder 123 with Captain Mike Dugan. 123 was a house where the training never ended, where the mission came first, and it was always teammates, and self, where the drill was fantastic and the work was first, last, and always, and where examples of courageous firefighters were studied. Brown, Hatton, and others. Where humble firefighters were studied. Ellison, Gansey, and others. Where honor and duty were the rule. After 8 years on ladder 123, Rob landed a spot on one of the finest rescue companies in the world, Rescue 2. Rob didn't shy from training and study. He pushed everything as hard as he could. His vision of what a firefighter ought to be was his philosophy of life. On December 19th, Rob responded to an apartment fire. After knocking the fire down, Rob and the other firefighters were ventilating, pulling ceiling, and checking for additional fire when suddenly the fire lit up over their heads. Rob helped the other firefighters quickly to the door, and he was heading out himself when suddenly the entire room flashed over. Rob dropped to the wall to orient himself as he was burning alive. He decided his best bet was to make for the window. A ladder operator saw Rob at the window, lowered the ladder down to Rob, and Rob, on fire and in intense pain, climbed out on his own. Rob was burned on 60% of his body with third-degree burns throughout. He remained in an induced coma for several weeks and then 3 months in the hospital. But Rob's courage didn't stop when he was no longer able to report for duty. Rob's sense of duty didn't stop because of his injuries. Rob's vision, his light of daring grew brighter, grew stronger. His sense of duty, his love of country, his sense of honor intensified. Rob now spends countless hours working with the Sons of the Flag to secure state-of-the-art burn care for civilians, firefighters, and military who've suffered burns as he did. Rob said it best himself. He said the extraordinary commitment, dedication, courage, loyalty, and respect that firefighters have is incomparable to any other brotherhood I know of. Our love of the job and each other, both on duty and off, is immeasurable. I am grateful and honored to be part of the bravest. Rob Weidman studied intensely. He trained intensely. But most importantly, he had a vision. He had a philosophy of life that drove him to be the best he could possibly be, not only as a firefighter, but as a human being. Rob knew and lived what you ought to be. Rob knew and lived what you can be. Rob is dedicated to what he will be. You see, character really does matter. The kind of character that we inherited from generations of firefighters. The kind of character that allowed Ross Mcginnis to give up his life for his teammates. The kind of character that allows E.J. Mascaro to push to be the best firefighter he possibly can be. The kind of character that pushes Rob Weidman to be the best man he possibly can be. The kind of character that puts the mission first, teammates second, and yourself last. My friends, both sides of that risk versus reward argument are right. Real firefighters embrace the science and the data. Real firefighters embrace the experience and the history. For our tactics and our techniques are ever evolving, ever changing. But what is universal, what is inalienable, is what it means. to be a firefighter. And for that quest, we need a vision. I'm asking you today to be that vision, to live that philosophy of life. And the examples are all around you, sitting next to you in this room. Firefighters whose backs stiffen when they hear duty, honor, country. They're in the arena like you. You know them, the Mullanes, the Hiddles, the Hughes, the Campos, the Whites, the Parkers, the Norwoods, the Grays, the Crawfords, the Von Appens, and the Pronestes. You and the firefighter next to you. You must be that vision of today's officer, physically fit, carrying a tick and an officer's tool. Today's young chief in a command location with a tablet command and chewing on a protein bar. Today's firefighter riding buckled up and wearing clean and proper fitting gear. Today's firefighter carrying around dog-eared copies of the company's officer's handbook and Fireground Command and quoting Norman and Brunacini. A vision of today's firefighter who lives by a simple honor code. We do not lie, cheat, or steal, nor do we tolerate among us those who do. This is the vision you will be responsible for. This is the vision you must pass on, your contribution, your philosophy of life. And let me be clear, only those of you who have that real-world experience, only those of you who have spent that blood and sweat and tears, only those of you who are honest and trustworthy, who are dutiful and honorable can make this commitment, and in doing so, humble yourself in service. A commitment to attain the training for the competency one needs to be what a firefighter ought to be. A commitment to attain the education for the confidence one needs to be what a firefighter can be. And a commitment to attain the excellence for the morality one needs to be what a firefighter will be. That is the true vision of the firefighter. One who is committed to being competent, one who is confident of their character, and one who is devoted to honorable service, and one who is loyal to his fellow firefighters. And by making this commitment, you will preserve for generations yet to come a vision, duty, honor, country. These three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.